Welcome back. There's been a spike in pupil suicides at Gauteng schools, and this is according to the province's Education Department. Education MEC Madume Chilwane says the department receives reports of alleged suicides almost on a daily basis. He's called on NGOs and other entities to help prevent suicide, and we're now joined by educational psychologist Fred Schouwink. Good afternoon to you, Fred. Thanks so much for your time. I hope I did your surname justice. Schouwink, is it?
Schouwink.
Thank you for joining us. Rather a sad story that we're now touching on, especially with the mental health or well-being of students in Gauteng, and I'm sure this is reflective of the rest of the country. What in your view, is the contributing factors towards this?
So, Cindy, I think, we certainly have got reason for concern, considering that in South Africa, our suicide rate is about 4 times the global average. So there's not just one root cause, and I think it's rather an interplay of various factors. For me, certainly, one of the key things to consider is often undiagnosed mental health disorders like anxiety and depression. And we know that very often with anxiety and depression, you also then have poor sleep, substance abuse, social isolation that puts a young person at even a higher risk for suicide. It's also very well documented that social media plays a role because it does set these unrealistic standards that place young people at high risk of feeling worthless and inadequate, especially for those who spend a lot of time seeking that validation through likes and comments. And obviously cyberbullying can also then be a risk factor. Some of the other things that we need to consider is certainly the intense pressure that a lot of young people are under academically, and they feel that stress and feelings of inadequacy because they are growing up in an environment that's highly competitive, perhaps high parental expectations, and those things. And we also know that certainly a lack of family support can play a role. More than ever, I think families are facing unprecedented levels of stress, and this can lead to poor communication, increased family conflict, and in some cases, even domestic violence, abuse, and neglect. And these challenging family dynamics often put young people at risk for mental health problems and suicidal tendencies. And I think just in general, in South Africa, we also have the economic instability and uncertainty about the future and the high unemployment rate. And I think young people certainly wanting to study further or seeking employment, but not able to do so, experience high stress that can lead to suicidal ideation.
Yeah, but the picture that you're painting now is that we're essentially setting up young people for failure, particularly if you're saying that one safe space, the refuge, which is your home, which is supposed to give you a sense of belonging, love, and nurture you to be the person that you prospectively could be. If that is in disarray or dysfunctional, by the time you get into the real world, it's very difficult to navigate life's challenges if you don't have that foundation, a strong foundation from your home.
Yes, exactly. And I think that is where families play a very, very important role, and friends, because that is the environment where you're supposed to feel safe. And I think that's important for parents and for family members to keep in mind that there should always be an environment where you can communicate openly, and where children are safe to express their feelings without fear and judgment. And where parents are in tune with their children, actively listening and validating their feelings.
Yeah, but over the years, there's been NGOs, that deal with anxiety and also, the likes of Lifeline. I think where students or pupils do have a resource that they can tap into if the household itself is not adequate.
Yeah, and I think NGOs play an incredibly important role here because they provide obviously that counseling services that are often accessible, they're confidential, and that gives children the opportunity to actually, discuss their concerns. What I also appreciate about a lot of our NGOs in South Africa is that they are creating a lot of awareness around mental health, because we do need to get to a place where the stigma around mental distress and mental health is addressed so that we can speak openly about these issues, and NGOs play a very important role there.
And just the schools, in terms of be it career guidance or even support psychologically. We know that in the more resourced schools, former Model C and private schools, you do have options where you can go to clinicians or specialists if your child needs those kind of interventions, but it's not necessarily the case in public schools. So what is the recourse? What is the option that many South African township or rural school pupils would lack that we as NGOs probably can provide?
So I think the NGOs play a critical role here. There are many different types of NGOs, and I think the most well-known ones being Childline and SADC. And they often have this 24-hour toll-free helplines where children and young people can discuss any issues and emotional distress that they're experiencing. What we also know is that many of these NGOs have online chat rooms where kids can engage, either telephonically or in these chat groups. And, those resources are very useful because those counselors can hold that child and, take them through and speak through the difficulties they are experiencing and put them in touch with the correct resources that they might need.
Yeah. Talk to us about the importance of having the necessary be early detection or diagnosis of any mental health condition that a young person may go through, because that is likely to then be transmitted into your adult life as well.
Yeah. So, and I think that's a very important point that you're making, Cindy, that early intervention is absolutely crucial, because sometimes I think people believe if you just leave it, it will get better. Often it doesn't. And so it is important for all stakeholders, for parents, teachers, to really know what those early signs are to look out for so that they can be addressed in a way where it doesn't become a problem later on. Adolescence is a time where there's just so many changes happening. And when we can give young people the skills and the tools to deal with life's difficulties and these underlying mental health conditions, they can lead for a much more positive outcome later on in adulthood.
Fred, we really appreciate your time. Educational psychologist Fred Schouwink is speaking to us about the high rate of teenage suicide, as we heard from the Education Minister, or MEC rather, in their address in terms of the matric readiness and, or rather the safety indaba they had recently, saying that a number of students have reported either having images or feelings of wanting to terminate their lives, and that this is quite worrying. But we do urge young people to reach out where possible.